What are you looking at right now? A screen. Obviously, you are staring at a glowing rectangle, probably less than 2 feet from your face. And before this, you were likely staring at another screen, and before that, another one. Think about your yesterday. Think about the day before that. If you are like the average person alive today, your eyes spent somewhere between 8 and 10 hours locked onto a luminous digital surface. Your phone in the morning, your monitor at work, your television at night. A carousel of glowing rectangles, one after another, from the moment you open your eyes to the moment you force them shut. Now here is the question that should unsettle you. What did human beings look at before any of this existed? Not just before smartphones, not just before television, before books, before painted walls, before windows with glass in them. For 99% of human history, none of these things existed, and yet human eyes were open, human minds were awake, human bodies were sitting in stillness. So when your ancestors sat in silence, in the open world, with nothing to read, nothing to scroll, nothing to watch, what did their eyes actually rest upon? The answer to that question might be the most important thing you learn today. For the vast majority of human existence, the world had no walls. Ancient humans did not live inside boxes. They did not commute through concrete corridors or sleep under flat ceilings. For 300,000 years, Homo sapiens lived inside an open, breathing, infinite world. Their ceiling was the sky, their floor was the earth, and in every direction, as far as their eyes could possibly reach, there was distance. Anthropologists who study pre-agricultural human behavior describe a specific mode of vision that defined daily life for ancient people. They call it panoramic vision. It is the act of allowing the eyes to rest unfocused on a wide open field of view, scanning the horizon softly, taking in the full peripheral landscape without locking onto any single point. This was not passive. This was not doing nothing. This was the default operating state of the human visual system for hundreds of thousands of years. Ancient humans would sit at the mouth of a cave and watch clouds shift across an open sky. They would stand on a ridge and let their gaze drift across a valley floor. They would rest beneath a canopy of moving leaves and allow the dappled, shifting light to wash over their unfocused eyes. They were not bored. They were not zoning out. They were doing precisely what the human eye was architecturally designed to do. The contrast with modern life is almost violent in its sharpness. Today, researchers in environmental psychology describe what they call focal vision, the forced, sustained narrowing of sight onto a single close object. A phone, a page, a screen, a wall that is 4 feet away. This is the visual mode that modern humans inhabit for the overwhelming majority of their waking hours. Eyes locked, range compressed, the horizon gone. The philosopher and wilderness scholar Paul Shepard, writing in 1973 in his landmark work Nature and Madness, argued that the human psyche was formed and calibrated inside a wild, open space environment. He described the transition from landscape living to enclosed living as a kind of species-level trauma, not a metaphor, a literal, measurable rupture between what the human organism was built for and the environment it was now being forced to inhabit. Scientists who study myopia, the condition of nearsightedness, have traced a stunning correlation. As recently as the 1970s, myopia affected roughly 25% of the population in developed nations. Today, that number has climbed to nearly 50% globally, and in some East Asian cities, it has surpassed 80% among young adults. Researchers at the Brian Holden Vision Institute in Sydney have projected that by the year 2050, nearly 5 billion humans will be myopic. 5 billion human beings whose eyes can no longer see the distant horizon clearly. The eye, quite literally, is reshaping itself to match the world it now lives in, a world of walls, a world of closed surfaces, a world without distance. And here is the historical nugget that stops most people cold. The ancient Greeks had a specific word for the act of gazing softly at the distant horizon without focusing on anything in particular. The word was theoria. Today, scholars translate this word as contemplation or philosophical speculation. It is the root of the modern word theory. But in its original Greek usage, theoria was not an abstract intellectual act. It was a physical, embodied practice of open-eyed, distant gazing that the Greeks believed was the purest pathway to wisdom and divine understanding. When ancient Greek philosophers described the act of thinking deeply, they were not picturing someone hunched over a desk staring at a text. They were picturing a figure standing on a hillside, eyes open and soft, gazing at the vast, unbroken sea. The deepest human thinking was once synonymous with looking at the infinite horizon. Now here is where the science becomes impossible to ignore. Inside the human brain, sitting deep within the temporal lobe, there is a small almond-shaped structure called the amygdala. Neuroscientists describe it as the brain's primary threat detection and fear processing center. When the amygdala fires, the body receives a cascade of biological commands. Cortisol surges, the heart rate climbs, breathing shallows, muscles tighten, the body is preparing to fight, flee, or freeze. This is the survival system. It kept ancient humans alive for 300,000 years. And it is entirely, profoundly visual. In 2021, neuroscientist and Professor Andrew Huberman at Stanford University School of Medicine published research and delivered widely circulated scientific lectures detailing a specific biological mechanism. He described what he called the panoramic vision effect on the amygdala. The research demonstrated that when the human visual field expands, when the eyes shift into a wide, soft, unfocused gaze that takes in peripheral vision and distant space, the amygdala deactivates, not metaphorically, physiologically. The threat detection center of the brain receives a direct, automatic signal that the environment is safe. Cortisol drops. The parasympathetic nervous system engages. The body, at a biological level, exhales. The horizon is not just beautiful. The horizon is a biological off-switch for human fear. And now consider the inverse. When the human visual system locks into focal near-point vision, the eyes narrow, the peripheral field collapses, and the brain receives an entirely different signal. Huberman and other researchers in the field of visual neuroscience describe this response in stark terms. Sustained, close-focus vision activates the same neural circuitry as a predatory pursuit or a close-range threat assessment. The brain, receiving this signal, does not know that the human is simply reading email. It reads the visual data and concludes that something close, something immediate, something requiring intense attention is happening right now. And so the amygdala stays switched on. Not at full screaming alarm, just simmering. Low, constant, a quiet hum of biological urgency that never fully turns off. In 1992, psychiatrist and researcher Thomas Ware at the National Institute of Mental Health in Bethesda, Maryland, conducted a series of studies examining how artificial light environments affected human neurological and hormonal rhythms. His work demonstrated that when modern humans are removed from natural, wide-spectrum outdoor light and placed exclusively inside artificially lit enclosed spaces, their hormonal systems, particularly the regulation of melatonin and cortisol, begin to desynchronize in measurable, clinically significant ways. The body's internal clock, calibrated over hundreds of thousands of years of open-sky living, begins to drift and fragment when sealed inside artificial environments. The body was calibrated for open space. It was calibrated for natural light. It was calibrated for distance. And it has been taken indoors and handed a glowing screen. Researchers studying the global rise of anxiety disorders have noted a pattern that is difficult to dismiss. Ambient anxiety, the kind with no specific cause, the free-floating, low-level dread that millions of people describe as their default emotional state, has risen in direct proportion to the hours modern humans spend inside, in front of screens, in enclosed environments with compressed visual fields. The correlation is not perfect, but the directionality is consistent. The human nervous system is not broken. It is doing exactly what it was designed to do. It is responding to a visual environment that tells it every single day, every single hour, that something close and dangerous requires sustained, focused attention. It is not wrong, it is just tragically, completely out of context. So now, let us bring this back to you. You know that feeling, the one where you are sitting at your desk mid-afternoon, and for no reason you can clearly name, you turn and look out the window. Not at anything specific, not at a car, or a tree, or a person. Just out, into the distance, into the open air. Maybe your eyes go slightly soft and unfocused. Maybe your breathing slows for just a moment. Maybe something inside you settles, quietly for just a second. And then you feel guilty because you are supposed to be working. Here is what is actually happening in that moment. Your brain, your 300,000-year-old brain that has not fundamentally changed since your ancestors stood on open African savannas, is desperately reaching for the one visual input it was designed to require: distance, openness, the horizon. That urge is not laziness. That pull toward the window is not a lack of focus or a symptom of anxiety or a failure of discipline. It is your ancient biology trying to save you. Your body is running the same neurological software it has always run. And that software is currently installed in an environment it was never, not once in its entire evolutionary history, designed for. concrete walls, fluorescent ceilings, a glowing screen 4 inches from your face. Your amygdala is not malfunctioning, it is doing its job. It is reading the visual data of your compressed, enclosed, close-focused world and correctly concluding that something is wrong. Because something is wrong. You were not built for this. Your eyes were built for the sky, for the shifting line where land meets air, for the slow drift of clouds across an open field, for the kind of distance that tells your nervous system, at the deepest biological level, that you are safe, that the horizon is clear, and that you do not need to be afraid. The anxiety you carry, the brain fog that arrives by mid-afternoon, the inexplicable exhaustion that no amount of sleep seems to fully cure. These are not character flaws. They are not failures of willpower. They are the symptoms of a species that traded the infinite horizon for a glowing rectangle in its pocket. And the price, quietly, invisibly, every single day, is your sense of peace. Your ancestors did not need a prescription for anxiety. They stepped outside. They looked up. They let the horizon do what it has always done. They let the distance calm them. You still can. The sky is still there.